You watch what the Blue Jays did in dismantling the Yankees. You watch Max Fried, their best pitcher, who's healthy right now. Although people argue with Schlittler, people will say, well, Rodon, how about him? No, Max Fried has been their best, and the Blue Jays offense at their best, they just got the better in a short series when an offense scores this number of runs. Think about what the Blue Jays did. Forget the fact they actually scored 20 runs in a row over the two games, which is staggering. Just think about the number of runs they scored in two games. When playoff games like the Mariners and Tigers were 3-2 both games, you're used to 2-1s, 3-1s. The Blue Jays offense just obliterated the Yankees pitching. Moral victory is something that this weekend was a step back in my personal situation with my daughter. And it was, there are little moral victories that I am supposed to be taking for little things that have happened. And I have been thinking about it all weekend, and I didn't know. Again, thank you for your flexibility. As a matter of fact, this week, Tuesday and Thursday, I think we're going to do 9 a.m. shows. We can't do 7 a.m. shows, as I will be doing overnight shifts to try to be as helpful as I can to my family, and I just cannot start at 7 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I don't know how long that will be. We don't know anything, as you know. But the moral victory is something that I want to believe in. I want to believe when there's one positive thing that you can latch onto that. And I've been learning a lot about latching on and all the other things. But my problem with it is that if the destination is going to be what the destination is going to be, where do you stand with the moments of positivity? It's a defense mechanism by some people where you have to latch onto it and be positive and think to yourself, no, this could be 2017. The Yankees can win 3 in a row. It was the Guardians. And then when you move moral victories out of the sports world into the real world, out of the world of on-the-field games into the world of your life, the question is, does that change how you think about what a moral victory is? So I was pondering this during the course of the weekend, and more so last night, as I was not watching the amount of sports that I would normally watch over a weekend. And I was pondering to myself, is there a way that I can change? Because it occurs to me that the moral victory people are way happier than I am. It occurs to me that the moral victory people are able to take a moment and expand on the moment in a way that I'm not able to do, because for me, it is so hard not to focus on the reality of a situation. I would much rather be like somebody else. I'd much rather be the person who analyzes the Yankees series and says, oh, we're good, we're fine. I have not been able to get there. The other thing that happened this weekend is that I got the flu and COVID vaccine, which I was asked to get in order to not be sick and to do the things that I need to do to be helpful where I need to be helpful. What the people who told me to do it don't realize is whenever I get the COVID vaccine and the flu vaccine, or just the flu vaccine by itself, I get sick as a dog. And this weekend, I got the flu for sure, and I was positive that I had it. But it turns out at about 4:30 this morning, which was hour 36 post-vaccine, I was fine, which means I didn't have the flu, even though I was sure I had the flu. So all in all, Coca, it was a crappy weekend. And so I am going to try to get you through the things that I noticed this weekend in sports. Coca's going to fill in on some things that he noticed in sports. There are some stories, because you know you don't come to us for recaps anyway. We're not going to recap the games. Go figure out another way to recap a game. But there were some things that happened that fascinated me. So were you aware with the Blue Jays and Yankees that Max Scherzer and Chris Bassett are not even on the wild card roster? And when they were not put on the roster, I assume you were thinking to yourself, well, that's strange. Who are the top 3 starters? Who is going to pitch for the Blue Jays. And you may have said, oh, is it Berrios? And then you would realize, well, no, what about Bieber? Well, I guess so, but Bieber's not a number one starter. So they go with Gausman as the number one starter. And the reality is that the number two starter was no one anyone had seen or heard of. So I will tell you, because I'm not going to lie to you ever, I didn't know who Trey Yesavage was, the starter for the Blue Jays. I had never seen him pitch. My assumption was when Scherzer and Bassett were left off the wild card roster, the assumption would never be, wow, those people know more than I do, because that would go against my ego, which of course is the way to look at it. But none of us look at our executives of the teams we like ever saying that. We always look at the executives and say they don't know anything about anything. So Trey Savage gets the ball, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking, he's got some nasty stuff here. Is he a retread? Like, what do we got here? So I did some work on him, and it's true. I'm not going to be the guy who tells you, oh, I saw him in college and high school, and I knew what he'd be. Never heard of him. 22 years old. And I'm looking and I'm saying, this looks a lot like early of the Red Sox. This looks a lot like Schlittler, though this stuff is different. But another rookie who comes up where the baseball people look at him and say, giving him the ball makes the most sense because his stuff is just better than what we've got. Not only is Yesavage's stuff better, and we talked with Blair and Barker on the show in Canada. I haven't done that show in several weeks, which I'm sorry for. I want to get back and do it again. I don't know when I will. But that the Blue Jays do not have an ace. They didn't have a clear 1-1. Fried, I would argue, for the Yankees is. Skubal for the Tigers definitely is. You could argue Castillo for the Mariners, but there's arguments in almost every case other than when you've got an ace. And that's, of course, what Skubal is. And we'll talk about the irony of Skubal and what happened in the Tigers and Mariners game. But when Yesavage comes in and he goes 5 1/3 no hit and strikes out 11, the next thing that your baseball people and PR people tell you to do when you get it shoved the way they got it shoved is to make sure that everyone knows, hey, we had not seen this guy. We were flummoxed and baffled, but we'll study it and we'll catch up and we'll figure it out. And that's a bunch of horse hockey. The way baseball works is that when you've got a pitcher you have never seen, you get video. You get to get into a batting cage and look at pitches coming directly from that pitcher. It doesn't replace actually facing the guy. But the truth of the matter is that the Yankees offense got dominated by the Blue Jays pitching in the first 6 innings of the game. Now, why is that interesting? Because we've told you that pitching's going to win. Pitching and defense will win championships. It's not that the Yankees couldn't score, because once someone gets out of the game who you can't touch, the hitters are always so happy to see anybody else. They'll start hitting. And the Yankees scored 7 runs, and you're thinking, what a great finish to the game. It sets them up perfectly for game 3. That is not the reality of the situation. The reality is that their best starter, Max Fried, gave up 7 earned runs. Their mop-up guy, Warren, who you could say to yourself, mop-up guy, he was eligible to be a starter. He may have to start at some point this postseason. But when I say mop-up guy, what I mean is a guy who's going to come in after a starter doesn't pitch, your long guy, if you will. A guy who will go 84 pitches because someone's got to get innings in. The other thing about that game that's going to be talked about, just so you're aware of it when it comes up, is my main man, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., hit a grand slam that was the most important hit of the game. It just put the game out of reach. And he did a bat flip from the batter's box where he stood there, and Coke and I did not put together and scratch together the Pablo-like funds in order to get highlight rights. But just take my word for it. Picture a guy who gets into the batter's box, hits the ball like a missile to blow a game open, knowing you're about to take a 2-0 commanding lead over your dreaded, hated Yankees. Stand in the batter's box, flip the bat, and then jog around. Now, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that's how he goes. He jogged around. Outstanding. If I'm the New York Yankees and I see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. do that, I'm popping the next guy. Hard stop.